Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab and today's video, which is going to be my first impression thoughts on the brand new Pat McGrath Divine Rose collection. It was a collection that included an eyeshadow palette, highlighter, and some lip products. I decided to purchase the eyeshadow quad, which I have here, as well as the highlighter. I have a couple of existing Pat McGrath products to compare it to, as well as the Natasha Denona Mini Love palette and a couple of highlighters from Pat McGrath as well. Before we get into the video, if you're new here, I'm Jody. Thank you for joining me for today's video. If you enjoy this one, then hopefully you'll consider subscribing and joining me for a future video. We're a growing little family here and would absolutely love to have you. Thank you to my returning subscribers. I really appreciate all the love and support, especially the first 5 commenters on my previous video. Thank you for continuing to show my channel lab love. Those that have YouTube channels will have the YouTube logo and be linked in the description box down below in case you're interested in checking out any of my YouTube friends. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into this video. First things first, I have to admit, when I saw the collection being sneak peeked, I wasn't too excited about the collection. Pat McGrath has done quite a number of the rose-themed collections already, and I would like to see something a little bit different from her, maybe a new product. I know a lot of us have been anxiously awaiting for blushes and things like that, but I am a Pat McGrath collector, and so here we are. This time around, I made my purchase from the Sephora website, despite the fact that there were a couple of days between the launch from the Pat McGrath website and the Sephora website, but I had a couple of credit card reward points to collect, and because I'm on a beauty budget this year, I would like to retain my Rouge status at Sephora because, you know, of the perks and especially the 20% off in the spring and fall. So I did see that these products were listed on the Sephora website as coming soon and that they would be released on February 5th. So I went ahead and I just decided to be patient and place my order from the Sephora website for the reasons that I've already mentioned. And I just got my collection today and I went ahead and threw it on my face, and I want to share my first impression thoughts with you on the collection. So the first item that I purchased was the Pat McGrath Divine Rose Quad, and this is the Eternal Eden collection. And here's what the outer packaging looks like. It's very reminiscent of the eyeshadow quads that she had for holiday. This one includes 4 shades. They are brand new shades as best as I can understand, and this palette is listed as made in the United States and it has a 12-month shelf life. On the back side of the palette, you do have information about the ingredients as usual, and then the inside of the palette looks like this, typical Pat McGrath packaging for her quads. And I do really appreciate that on the back side she has now added a sticker that has both the name of the palette as well as the 4 eyeshadow shades. So I think they're definitely listening to feedback over at the Pat McGrath team. Here's what the palette looks like, and again, I wasn't too excited when I saw this launch because it's very similar to her other Divine Rose collection, and I'll show you those palettes in comparison in just a little bit, but I did want you to go ahead and see this specific palette. You do have 2 mattes and 2 shimmers. Your matte shades are going to be Temptation and Earthly Delight, which is down here, and your 2 shimmers are Pink Mystique and Forbidden Fruit. I did want to show you some comparisons. So here you have the new palette versus the original Divine Rose palette. You can see that the original Divine Rose palette is a little bit more neutral, a little bit more muted, and the new palette is definitely more on the pink purple side. The biggest similarity that you'll see is really the second matte shade right here compared to the Earthly Delight matte shade in the new palette. But the one in the new palette has a greater depth of color. In my opinion, this one is a lot more muted. Here she is compared to Divine Rose 2, and in this case, Divine Rose 2 appears to be brighter, more saturated color, whereas the new palette is a lot more muted in comparison. Not to mention that the Divine Rose 2 has that duochrome shade, which makes it really, really special. So here's the comparison of these 2 palettes. Here you have the new palette against the Mothership Rose Decadence palette. And in this case, I think that you have a lot of similarities, except for the Rose Decadence palette has a tendency to have those pinks that lean a little bit more warm, whereas the new palette is a little bit more cool tone. But you have similar vibes, just this one pulls a little warm, this one pulls a little bit more cool. Now, even though this palette is really not part of the Rose collection from Pat McGrath, this was the holiday holiday palette from this last holiday. I do believe that a lot of the tones in here can duplicate the vibes of the new eyeshadow palette. You do have this matte, which is a little bit more rosy toned, but it is cool toned. And then you have a lot of shimmers in this palette that can give you a similar vibe as the new palette. I know that a lot of people picked up the holiday palette, so I wanted you to see them side by side to kind of get an idea on if you would like to invest on the new palette if you already have the holiday palette. Now, with this comparison, I would say that the new quad is going to give you a little bit more of a wearable look because the shades are a little bit more muted. I think the holiday palette has a lot more saturation of color, but if applied lightly, again, I think you could get a similar vibe. I did also want to compare to the Mini Love palette from Natasha Denona. This was a recent addition to the Natasha Denona line. And in my personal opinion, I think that this mini from Natasha Denona is a little bit more versatile because you have two mattes that are of varying depth. You have this matte right here, which you can use to deepen out the outer corner, or you can use it for liner. And then you have a more transition shade. And then you have some variety with the shimmers where you could get a more pink look versus a more gold toned versus something more neutral. This one is definitely going to be strictly in the rose family. And I don't know, I think that the Natasha Denona color story gives you a little bit more versatility, but at the same time, you do have one additional shade. So I just wanted you to take a look at these side by side for comparison. Here are your 4 shades. Very pretty. Now that I'm swatching them like this, I almost wish I had used that pink color, but you know, with these quads, a lot of the times I usually try to apply all 4 shades to my eyes so that I can tell you a little bit about the performance of each shadow. But then I usually jumble up my eye look and I end up not liking it because I'm trying to do too much. But these colors, oh my gosh, they're so pretty. Very pretty. I didn't tell you the price, which is $58. It is listed as limited edition on the Sephora website, and you are receiving 1.72 grams per shade. So each one is 1.72 grams. 12-month shelf life on this palette. I'll leave the demo for the end of the video since I know not everybody likes to look at that. I'll kind of put timestamps along the video so you can skip ahead if you'd like. But I obviously can't speak to this brighter tone, which is the shade Temptation. It's swatched beautifully. Like I said, I almost wish I had used it in my eye look just to give me something a little bit more vibrant, but that's okay. I did apply the other shades to the eye. This one is a typical Pat McGrath metallic. It does have a little bit of a gold flip when you swatch it and when you apply it to the eye. Now this shade here, which is the Forbidden Fruit shade, when I was first working with it, and you'll see that in the demo, I was feeling as if I had to pile it on a lot. I felt like when I picked it up, it kept getting stuck on my finger rather than transferring to my eye, and I had to keep building it up a little bit. And then I was worried that I was getting hard pan. Like if you see the color that's in the pan right now, it looks like it might be hard pan, but actually it isn't. If I press my finger in there, which I just did for swatching, it's just something about the texture of the shadow itself. But at first I was a little concerned. I'm like, wow, is that going to be the first Pat McGrath shade that gives me hard pan? But it's actually not. It's something about the texture of the shadow itself. It's a little bit different. Having used the palette, even if it's just for my first time, again, I'm not too excited about the color story. It is just a muted pink color story. This isn't my favorite color story. It's not the most flattering on me, I don't think, and so it's not something that I was super excited about. I do feel that the mini Natasha Denona palette would give you a little bit more versatility, and I also do feel that if you picked up the holiday palette, you can definitely get a similar vibe from the holiday Pat McGrath palette as you would from this specific quad. But if you're a collector, then I'm assuming you probably already have it, just like I do. Let's go ahead and talk about the highlighter next. So this one is called the Skin Fetish Ultra Glow Highlighter, and it is in the shade Divine Rose. Believe it or not, I was less tempted to pick up this highlighter than almost anything else in the collection. And part of it is because it looks so pink. Even the packaging is pink, but you'll see that's actually not the truth. Now, this highlighter is also listed as limited edition. It has an 18-month shelf life. This one is made in Italy, and you have a total of 10 grams of product in it. This is the outer packaging. This one is just a basic box. It has a beautiful outer design, of course, but there's nothing too spectacular about the packaging itself. Here's what the inner component looks like. It's pink metallic, and on the back side there's a sticker. The sticker doesn't have the ingredients, but it has everything else. 18-month shelf life, 10 grams of products, as well as the product name. And when you open it up, it's just a compact. So you do have a mirror on the inside, and here's what the shade actually looks like. The reason why I wasn't as excited about this one is, I mean, the shade is called Divine Rose, and if you look at it, it looks very pink. Now again, pink highlighters are just not something that look that great on my skin tone. And so I really wasn't that intrigued, but then I saw that it was limited edition, and being a collector, here we are. The first thing I wanted to mention with regard to the component is after buying her holiday highlighter, which I have right here, I mean, the difference in packaging is enormous. I'm not saying that this pink one isn't nice. It's actually really nice. But compared to this is so luxe. It is so heavy. It's just absolutely beautiful. Now this one doesn't have a mirror, it's just a screw top lid, and here's what the product looks like. Now this one is called Champagne Gold, but yet on my skin tone, this one pulled a little bit pink. And if you saw my videos with the Pat McGrath holiday collection, you saw that the highlighter actually wasn't one of my favorite products, and it still isn't. I just don't find that it, I don't know, I just don't find that it highlights my skin tone the way that I like. I like a highlighter like I'm wearing today, which is the one in this new collection. There's something about this one that it's different than her other highlighters. She did release a highlighter palette, which I have right here, and this one is called the Sublime Skin Highlighting Trio. And it's funny because the holiday highlighter is called the Sublime Skin Highlighter, but in my opinion, these formulas are different. So if you look at this trio, right, if you look at the trio here, the formulation of these powders is a lot more similar to the new one, which has a different name. This one is called an Ultra Glow Highlighter. But in my opinion, the highlighter in this collection, the Divine Rose, is very similar in formulation to this trio. So if you have the trio and you like the formula, then I believe you're getting something very similar in this one. And then the holiday collection highlighter, in my opinion, is completely different. So let's go ahead and swatch this one. Even though you can see it on my face already, I thought it was going to pull pink, but it really doesn't. It's actually more of a sheer champagne, which is, you know, a very good neutral highlight that can go with any look. It does have a slight pink shift, but it's a little bit more on the peachy side, and since I have a warmer skin tone, it kind of flatters my skin tone. I'm gonna go ahead and swatch that. And so you can see it's champagne with a slight peachy shift. I'm going to actually swatch the holiday highlighter, and hopefully you'll be able to see those pink undertones. So here's the holiday highlighter. And for some reason, that one just looks a little bit deeper for me. See, and you can see a lot more pink in that one. So in my opinion, the one from Holiday has more of a base color. It's a thicker formula as well. And so you kind of have to be within a certain skin tone range for this to look good on you. And I just don't find it as reflective as I like. But if you like a natural highlight, then you might like the Holiday one better. Personally, I prefer this one. It highlights my skin a little bit better. I think the base color is a little bit more sheer. It doesn't emphasize anything. It doesn't look powdery on my skin. I picked it up on a dry brush when I applied it. I applied it with the Anastasia A23 brush, and I think that it looks really nice. I mean, I definitely have a glow, and I feel that it's just, I'm not gonna say natural or glow from within, but it just looks, it doesn't look metallic. It looks more like a glass skin kind of effect, which is something that I really like. So I wanted to go ahead and compare those two for you as well. And then just remind you of the formulation of this trio. This was called the Sublime Skin Highlighting Trio. The formulation of this, even when touching the powders, seems very, very similar to this new highlighter. So when comparing these two, even though I absolutely cannot regret the purchase of the holiday highlighter, because this is just, when you're holding it, you know you're holding something special. I have to say that in terms of the performance, the application, the shade, Everything else other than the packaging, I do prefer this specific highlighter. And if I didn't say this highlighter retails for $48, you're also getting more product in this one. So the holiday highlighter had 6.5 grams of product. This one has a full 10 grams. So those are the basics from the two items that I picked up from the collection, the quad as well as the highlighter. And I do want to show you how I created the eye look. It's just going to be a very simple little demo so that you can see how the products perform and apply to the face. So let's go ahead and rewind time so that you can see the application. All right, well, let's get started with this very simple eye look that I created. I did prime my eyes and I used the Makeup by Mario Prime and Set, Master Eye Prime and Set. And here is the eyeshadow palette. I'm going to use every single shade except for the pink one. I'm going to stick to the 3 shades here. I have this one in the crease, this one on most of my lid, and I use this one on the inner corner. And I use the highlighter actually on my brow bone. So I'm going to take a Smith 230 and the matte shade. And you know, as much as people still rave about these Smith brushes, I've never really enjoyed them. I prefer the face brushes to the eye brushes, but I do have to say that because they are natural hair, they do pick up the product really well, and because they're prickly, they diffuse the product really well as well. So you can see, like, I went in kind of with a heavy hand and I'm still able to blend it out. So in that case, I guess it's good, but it really scratches my eyelid, honestly. Like you can see, I don't know if you can see, there's a bristle even sticking out. Yeah, I'll still use them. I have them. I think the handles are so pretty, but I never liked the quality of the brushes. I did a whole review about these on my channel some time back, and yeah, my opinion hasn't changed. I think their face brushes are a lot better. There's a couple of other eye brushes like these that have the brown hairs. I'm going to be using those later. They're a little bit better. But anyway, this is not about the brushes. This is about the palette. And I do think that this mauve matte is beautiful. You can see that I can get a really nice blend. And even though I'm using only one shade, it actually looks like I used a lot more. I'm very familiar with the Pat McGrath formula already. I reviewed a lot of her palettes, and I have to say, so far, you know, with this one, I've obviously already completed that eye. The palette is performing as I would expect. It's just not my personal favorite color story. I think that these rose tones, and she's so hooked on the rose, right? They kind of make me look a little bit sick. I don't think they are the most flattering tones on my specific skin tone, but I do collect all her palettes for the time being, and so I bought this one as well. I'm going to go ahead and apply the shimmer shade with my fingertip. And when I was doing the other eye, I did notice like a little bit of flaking, not a lot, but I think it's because I went in with a really heavy hand right off the bat. Yeah, I find it a little bit sheer, and even picking it up with my finger, it's a little bit harder to pick up. I don't do the wet brushes, as I've told you guys in the past, because it makes my eyes water, and then my eyeshadow creases really badly. So this is a much better approach. I'm not using a glitter glue or anything like that. With a glitter glue, you can obviously get more impact, but I like to see what the shadows do on their own, and it's looking a lot better on this eye because I didn't apply quite as much. So I'm just going in with this one all on the lid. It's interesting because it's actually a little bit difficult to wipe off the shadow off my finger. I feel like a lot of it sticks to my finger and doesn't transfer to my lid. Just the same, it looks really pretty. That brush was the Smith 230, by the way. Next, I'm going to use the Smith 253. Along with kind of going through my makeup collection, I want to go through my makeup brushes as well. I'm just taking that lighter shimmer shade right there, and I'm applying it on the inner corner. I feel like it's popping more on this eye than it did on the other one, so I'm just going to touch up a little. Yeah, with regard to the Smith brushes, these brown-haired brushes, I actually prefer much more than the other one that I was using just a minute ago. For the brow bone highlight, I'm going to actually use the highlight from the collection, and I have to say, like, this packaging, it's very pretty. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's really pretty. Here's the product inside, very pretty, like pinky champagne color. But compared to her holiday highlighter, this feels super light. Okay, I'm just gonna apply this on my brow bone here. And I'm using a Smith 247. This one is a white-haired brush, but it's not as prickly as the other one. This one is a little bit better. And I'm just going to blend in between the two shades. I did apply some brown liner. This one is called a Fixie Slim Waterproof Fixie Liner. It's something that I got from Yes Style. I'm going to be doing a video using like K-Beauty style products. They gifted me a bunch of products, this included, and I've been playing with them to get to know them a little bit, and I want to do a video in that style. So basically I just want to do like a small wing, and I'm not going to give this any significant shape right now. I'm just kind of going to stamp it. Well, it's a pencil liner, so I'm drawing, I'm not stamping. I'm just kind of doing it along my upper lash line, and I'm going to give it the shape with a brush. For that, I'm using the Smith 203, and basically I'm just going to blend out the color. This one is a nice brush for like gel liner and doing work like this because it's very thin, it's very firm, and it's able to really move the product. So that's a pencil liner that I'm actually able to blend out this way and make somewhat of a winged look. All right, that's about even, and obviously you can use any liner. This one is like a deep chocolate brown. I did top off the look using a little bit of mascara. So here's the eye look so far. You saw I used all the shades with the exception of that brighter pink. And I'm going to do my face makeup. Everything I will be using will be linked in the description bar down below. I'll be back to do the lower lash line and demo the highlighter on my face as well. So here's where we are in the progress. I'm going to take a Smith 253 and that pink shade, and I'm just going to intensify the inner corner and take it just a tiny bit onto the lower lash line, just on the inside part. And then with a Smith 235, I'm going to take the matte shade in the palette, and I'm just going to brush that all along the lower lash line and kind of angling it upward. This one really is a beautiful matte shade. I'm going to finish it up with a little bit of brown liner in the waterline and a touch of the mascara as well. And now let's go ahead and apply the highlighter. So looking at the application of the highlighter, it's subtle. It's not as pink as it looks in the pan. I'm going to dig my fingers into it and swatch it. See how it feels. It feels kind of like a baked highlighter. It's a very subtle highlighter. On my skin tone, it looks very champagne, which I actually like. I thought her other highlighter was a little bit too pink for my preference, and this one being in the pink compact is actually less pink in my opinion. And because it is less pink, I actually like it more than the highlighter in the holiday collection. All right, so here's my look. What do we think? I'm actually using a little bit of the Auric. I think this is the shade Selenite. Yeah, Selenite. Underneath my foundation, just in the high points of my face, but you saw what it looked like before I put highlighter. And my skin all over is a little bit dewy just because of that, but I think it looks good. I bought a couple of the eye duos as well, so I can do a video on that if you're interested. Just let me know in the comment section. So this is how my look turned out with the Pat McGrath collection. I'm gonna zoom out so we can chat about it. All right, I hope you enjoyed seeing the demo of how I created this eye look, and I hope my first impressions were going to be helpful if you were debating on whether or not to pick up the collection. Now, in general, I think the eyeshadow palette is very nice quality, but it's not going to be a standout. It's not going to be within even my top 5 favorite Pat McGrath eyeshadow palettes. And so me personally, if I was going to select one of the 2 items that I picked up from the collection, it would actually be the highlighter. It doesn't have the prettiest packaging, but I really prefer it far more to the holiday highlighter. And yeah, I think it's really nice. It's a pleasant surprise, and I'm actually glad I picked it up. Now, it's a crazy expensive highlighter, but I do think that it's really pretty, and I do think that it's a color that is going to complement a lot of skin tones and also a lot of makeup looks, since it's more of a neutral color without a strong base. The palette is very nice quality. It's not surprising at all. I really was impressed with how that matte shade performed. Like typical Pat McGrath mattes, it blends out beautifully, that it looks like you worked with 2 or 3 different colors, even if you were only working with one. I really think her matte formula is really nice, and everybody's always, you know, going on about her special shades and her shimmers, but her mattes do deserve a lot of credit. They're really pretty. I do like the shade Forbidden Fruit. I think it's nice. I think it's a little bit different than other shades that I've seen in her collection. But honestly, nothing is going to compare to Lavendaring for me from the holiday collection. And like I said, this color story is just not my personal favorite. But if this is your color story, then I definitely think you could get a lot of use out of it. It's very easy to use. You can create a very pretty, sophisticated look in no time at all. So if you like the color story, then I would say go for it. Why not? I hope my first impression thoughts were useful to you. If you were still on the fence on whether or not to pick up the collection, if you did pick it up, I would love to hear what you thought about it. I will link the products in the description box down below, along with everything else that I have on my face in case you were curious. And that's going to be it from me today. If you did enjoy the video and found it helpful, please don't forget that big thumbs up. It really helps me and my channel. And seeing your feedback always encourages me to continue to bring you more content. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you're doing really, really well. And I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon on my next one. Bye-bye.